there are two big reasons you should be rethinking your health savings account. Hi, I'm financial planner Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So HSAs, folks love them, right? So you can get deductions for money contributed to an HSA, and then it can have tax-free growth inside the HSA. These things are fantastic. However, there are two big reasons many people with an HSA should be rethinking the whole thing. The first one has to do with when do you use the money inside an HSA? And I see this all the time. Folks build up an HSA, and while they're young and relatively healthy and relatively affluent in terms of their finances are going great, they're saving lots of money in all sorts of accounts, and then they get the sprained ankle over the weekend, and guess what they do? They go to urgent care, they go to the doctor, and they whip out that HSA debit card and they spend down that HSA during their young years. That really doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a tax perspective. Here's the thing, those medical bills, they gotta get paid. So the question is, from what type of account are we gonna pay that medical bill? And there's a big tax play here, right? You can go to your checking account, which is probably not making interest. If it is making interest today, it's probably less than 1%. And you can draw down those funds and pay down the medical bill, right? That doesn't really have much of a tax effect. There's no real good or bad or otherwise to it. But the alternative is to spend down that HSA. And that has a really bad tax effect. Because here's what's happening. That HSA is a tax-protected account. People got to remember that. It's a tax-protected account. You want to keep that money in there for as long as humanly possible so that it can grow tax-free. Your checking account cannot grow tax-free. In this interest rate environment, it barely grows at all, if it does. And even if it could grow, it can't grow tax-free. But in that HSA, it can grow tax-free. So if you're not in any sort of dire circumstance and you've got plenty of money in your checking account or your savings account, generally speaking, what you're going to want to do is use that money to pay those medical expenses. And then what you can do is separately track old medical expenses. And then many years later, after many years of tax-free growth, you do the reimbursement from the HSA to pay yourself for those previously incurred medical expenses. But that generally only works from a tax perspective if you let the HSA grow for many years, tax and penalty free. All right, here's the second thing most folks with an HSA should be rethinking. There's some research, I'll put it in the description below, that claims that 91% of HSA participants have not invested their HSA. That's a fancy way of saying that 9 out of 10 HSA holders only have cash inside their HSA. And look, I'm not here to give you investment advice in this YouTube video, but I am here to say that most HSA holders want to have some sort of diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and cash, right? We all need some sort of cash. If we're Americans, you got to pay some bills in US dollars, so you're going to have some cash. And then the question becomes, where should that cash reside? Well, the HSA is not that great of a candidate for cash. Why? Because it's a foregone opportunity. If we park cash in an HSA and it gets 1% interest, if we're lucky, but let's just say we are, well, okay, great. We shielded 1% interest a year from the tax man. That's not really winning the tax battle. Why don't we take those assets in our portfolio that we think are likely to grow, those assets that are likely to experience maybe 7% annual returns, 8%, 9%, 10% or more, park those in the HSA, and then we get all that tax-free growth away from the tax man, perfectly legal, right? You just want to think about, hey, what are the assets I want to own, and what are the tax baskets they should be in? High growth assets do real well in an HSA. So I think there are a lot of folks out there with HSAs, great start, but now you got to rethink, well, do I want to be using this for routine medical expenses while I'm young? And what should I be investing considering my total picture? And maybe the HSA is that place where I can get some really good, juicy, tax-free growth. Hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and mash that like button, and I'll see you next time.